Hi everybody. I am getting myself organized here, making sure the mic works. Looks like I figured out the upside downness from yesterday. Let's see if I can get this a little further away. Okay. I think that's level. I think I've got it right. Today I was going to do some Gelli printing. I've got my 4, 5 by 7, I think it is, Gelli plate here, and I am going to use alcohol inks on it today. This, you may have seen this, it's kind of the new fun thing to do with Gelli printing is to use alcohol inks. Basically put them straight onto the Gelli plate, and the Gelli plate behaves in the same way your Yupo paper would, and then there are various ways you can use to pull it off. And so what I have here is a distress sprayer full of alcohol. So I put this in 91% isopropyl alcohol, there we go. And I put it in my spray bottle, ready to go, so I can use it for various things. But what I'm going to do with the actual Gelli plate is literally apply the alcohol inks to it, like this. I know, crazy. And I'm hoping that I can see your comments as you talk, if you talk to me. So I'll keep an eye on that. Now, the big thing is that you want to have a nice mid-range between having too much and not enough alcohol on your plate. It will dry fairly quickly, and once it dries, it's easy to pick up accidentally with your brayer. So I'm just going to put some down and spread it around, and then where it hits the alcohol that's already on there, you'll see it'll start doing some of that alcohol-y stuff that they do. I've got 3 colors now, or 2 colors. I'm going to add a third to show you the dots. This is still more liquid, so you can see how the dots are behaving. They're moving around in that. This is taking longer because this had dried already. So you can plunk some of this down, watch it happen. Do that thing where you create pools with more color and more color in it, and it does that spready thing that alcohol inks do. This hasn't really spread around, so I'm just going to do it for it. And then I've got this alcohol here. Now, I'm going to show you a couple ways to pull it. So these first ones are really just about putting some color down and pulling it off. This first round, I'm actually going to let dry for the most part. And let's see, I'm going to have an extra piece of paper next to me so I have something to brayer down on. So I'm going to let it dry. And this part is dry. There's some puddles here that are not. And once it gets dry, I am going to add a layer of a white opaque paint on top. And it could be any paint. I happen to have my Martha Stewart satin sitting here, so I'm just going to use that. But any white paint from your stash that you like that has a nice opacity should work. And let's see. I'm going to start by brayering it on my paper, and then I'm just going to do a light layer over. I picked up some of the ink that was not dry yet. Just going to brayer it lightly over the top. I don't want to brayer it too much because it will pull up, but I want to get a nice even layer. And what that's going to do is bond with the colors I had down, and now it's going to make it easy for me to pull them up. So let's see what that first round looks like. Whew. So a lot going on here. You can see where some of those puddles made a more clear area, so you can see more of the paint between it or under it. But that, you can see it picked up pretty well everything that was on there. And because it's alcohol, it dries pretty quickly. Now another way to do it, believe it or not, is to not use paint. I'm going to set this aside. I've got this. I might use that as a background in a little minute. but let's see. Let me know if you have any questions, or just say hi. I love knowing who's watching. I can't tell. It doesn't out you until you say something. So if you want to say hi, feel free and watch in the comments. If you have questions, let me know. If there's something you want me to try, let me know. I'll give it a whirl. I'm not a jelly printing expert, but I do enjoy it. Ooh, look at that. I like how those colors mix together. So this time, let's see. I'm going to do something a little decorative on there. The colors are mixing together, which are kind of fun, but I'm also going to use this stamp. This is one of my art foamies, and I'm going to spray it with my Distress sprayer with the alcohol in it. And so I'm going to get it kind of wet, and then I'm just going to plunk it down, and now it's probably just going to lift for the most part, but the alcohol in there is going to make it do its runny thing. And then instead of paint this time, I'm actually going to take my paper and spritz it with the alcohol, and really quickly before it dries, I'm going to put it down, and you can see it coming through. And now I'm going to pull it up, and it pulls it all. And it goes a little, fuzzy because it's the alcohol, that's on the paper is going to react with it. But look how dramatic that is. I've got a lot of interest, and I've cleaned my plate off to do the next piece. So spritzing a little alcohol on the paper before you pull up, and you pull up a nice, really nice print like that. Okay, so those are the two ways that I'm going to pull prints today. I actually prefer the alcohol spritz over using paint. And so I'm just going to play around now with some color and some combinations and see what I get. Ooh, so there's nice purple or blue, no, turquoise, really, right? And let's see what happens if I add a little yellow. Good morning, Michelle. The paper I'm using is literally a 67-pound Bristol. It's part of, I actually have a stack left over from making, I make the lesson books that they use at my kids' school. And so I have all this paper. It happens to be cut this size, and some of it's 70-pound text weight, digital text weight, and some of it is a 67-pound Bristol. So it's just a stack, and I've got it there. I actually have bits of, what do they call this? Well, it's paper that goes in between in order to have artwork, so it doesn't smudge. And onion skin, that's what this is called. I have bits of that as well. Anyway, back to this. Getting distracted. So now I'm just going to do some of the puddly bits and see what happens. Let them. I don't know if you can do it on fabric. That's actually a good question, Michelle. Oh, two Michelles. I have two Michelles. Because fabric's so absorbent, you're not going to get the spread. But honestly, you could gesso some fabric and see if that, helps with that. But yeah, I don't see why you couldn't play around with it if you're using fabric in your art journal or wanted to do something arty with it. And I'm just grabbing, I've got a tub here of my inks, all my inks from over the years, so I'm not thinking about color so much as what's in my tub. Just dripping. So you can see in some of these places where there are puddles, you can see how the alcohol spreads. And I'm just going to show you this because it's not what I like to do, but I want to show you how alcohol, there's liquid and dried alcohol in here, and just spritzing the whole thing. Do you see how every individual dot then creates its own little cell and spreads it around? So I've got a little bit of spreadage going on here. What's so amazing about the alcohol inks is how vibrant they stay. Hi, Lois. Thanks for joining us. And you can muddy them pretty easily, but you can also maintain that vibrancy by letting, because they dry and then they do that thing where they push things around. That's what's fun. So anything you would do on a piece of Yupo paper with your alcohol inks. And Yupo paper is just that specially treated watercolor paper that lets it move around on top and then eventually dry. It's got a little bit of a sheen to it. This, you can do that on your mat here. So I'm going to do another stamp. This one is a number stamp. It's worth noting that this will end up backwards because of the stamp and the nature of the pull. But let me just go pull this and see what it looks like. You know, it really depends on the Xerox paper, Lois. I think, you know, the papers are really different from each other, so it's hard to tell. So you can really see how the areas that were flooded and still wet interacted versus the areas that had dried. You can see the splatter. Actually, look at the galaxy look I've got there. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's this one turned out kind of pretty. The smell of alcohol is fairly strong, though. It's one of the things you have to accept with this. Okay, so let me see. This one I want to do with a, let's do it with a stencil. So I just pulled this out of my stack. I'm going to start with it down, and I'm going to just add some alcohol ink, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I know what I wanted to try. I wanted to try some. I've got a little bit of something going on there. Roll out some more. Let's see what happens when I roll some color out. So I think you're asking, Lois, if the art foamies are hard to clean. They're pretty robust, and you can clean them with soap and water. I have a couple that have like very distinct little lines, and so those are harder to clean and keep safe. But like these ones, these are indestructible. They're pretty amazing. Okay. And if you're on my newsletter, you got it yesterday, you'll see that I am close to, I've got on my Saturdays, and starting in April, you can come in and shop spontaneously. You do not have to make an appointment for April on Saturdays. So these I went and filled in the specific dots. We'll see if that changes how this interacts. Whoop. Not much, but that's kind of cool. All right, so let's see. Here are a couple more art foamies that I have. I've got you know, more dots. This is what I mean about sort of the finer ones. These you can wreck these a little more easily, but they're still pretty robust. So I don't know if you have to worry about it too much. So I've got some nice lift there. I think I might go ahead and pull this one, see how it looks. Oh, come on. Finger issues. Okay. Spritzing my alcohol on, making sure there's a wet spot there. I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I put it down. And then put it down. Whoop. There we go. That's interesting. So you can really see the stamp worked really well that time. So that's kind of fun. And that splodge ended up kind of nice. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. I'll show you one thing that I saw someone doing that I thought was pretty cool. Resulted in some cool effects. The people who run Gelli Arts, you know, that make the one of the big suppliers of these plates is Gelli Arts, and they have a nice bunch of videos on their website that shows different ways to use it, and I know that they've covered alcohol inks for sure. So if you want more information, there's definitely more out there. And I sell the Gelli plates and the alcohol inks and the brayer. So, all right, so what I saw was this, which I thought was pretty cool. They took a shape and they just plunked it down, and then they put the alcohol ink around it, and they left it for a second. You know, one thing you could do is maybe use the actual lids of your alcohol inks, and then it just creates a little divot for it to work around. So, you know, you look around and see what else you have on your table, what I'm trying to do, and see if you have other stuff that would work for this. I don't want to contaminate my paint. Let it dry maybe and move it to another spot. Add some more color. Add it from the inside. And then from the outside, see what it does. Let's see what happens if I move this. Oh, that was still too wet. Ooh, look at that. So I still have alcohol on here, so I'm just going to use that. Oh, that's cool. And of course what it does is there's this halo effect, right, that happens. That's pretty cool. This reminds me way back when I had the Urban Craft Center. My very first space was this studio space. It wasn't a retail store at the time. And one of my logos was a shape like this. Let's see what happens. Now this is cardboard, so it's absorbing a little more versus stamping. So let's see. I'm going to pick this up, see what it looks like. Okay, so today is the first of what I hope to be many Thursdays, focusing on Gelli printing and the things you can do with it. Some of it will just be me playing around. That was kind of interesting. That green turned out really nice there. And you know, I'll probably use these for backgrounds for cards and things like that. Or maybe even, maybe I'll use them tomorrow, make a little art journal book out of it. Because these, you know, alcohol inks are great to then come in and doodle on top of them because they make a nice flat appearance. Fun. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to put my stencil down, and I'm actually going to spritz it with this and see if that changes how it interacts. Give it a second to dry. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I'll do the same here. So I'm letting the alcohol push it around, and it's going to sort of stick to the bottom of the stencil and create these interesting effects. So let's see what happens when I pull this. If I see any of that left over. Ooh. Now what's interesting is that, so here's some ink left over. This is what happens if I use the paper dry, right? Nothing. Doesn't pull anything up. But if I spritz it with a little alcohol, it then becomes something that it can react with. And I can, look at that. That's a pretty nice little ghost print I've got going on there. I'm going to try picking up this corner on top of it. Sweet, look at that. Now, this is something that I've only just started getting into, and this is what's nice having the deli paper around, because you can use it as for your background. But one thing I like to do, spread that around first, come in with another color. Okay, now Now this one I'm going to do like this. I'm going to use this one again, spritz it with my alcohol ink, or my alcohol, and then I'm going to pull it. But what I'm going to do is, my goal now is to, rather than have it framed in the paper, I'm actually going to try and build a picture. Oops. So like I'm going to put this down in a way that pulls up. And this is what's nice about this, is I can do this. Use this as the background. And now, let me pull that. Again, because I didn't have alcohol on there, did not pull it up very well. All right, so now I'm going to build a little bit on that. Let's see, I didn't use green, so I'll do some green. And maybe a little orangey red color. Okay, and then this time I'm going to do this. Squash this down. Oop. Give that a spritz, maybe that a spritz too, so I get a little bit of an effect there. Pull that off, let it dry for half a second, spritz the paper with some alcohol, and now I'm going to pick up from there. So I get a little bonus. So I can add, layers and be a little more specific about what I want on the jelly plate to add to another piece to build up. I'm actually just going to do a palette cleanser here. Oof, look at that. That's fun all on its own. So I do want to add a little more. I've got this white space that I want to fill up. So I'm going to do something to fill that space up, and I didn't get a nice vibrant green, so I'm just going to put green down on this one. That's all I'm going to focus on is green, and I'm going to let it dry pretty well so that it's a nice little film on there. And then I'm going to come in, I'm going to spritz this, and I'm going to come in and create and where it wasn't dry, it will pool a little bit. But now I'm going to come in and I'm going to use this edge and I'm going to try picking some of this up so that I get some of that green in there. Still, got to add the alcohol or it won't pick it up on its own. There we go. So now that piece is filled and I've got this sort of tiled effect where I have, the edges visible and I've got the different colors. So I think I'm going to do one last little bit though because I want to balance it out. So this is me being a lot more intentional about my jelly print than I usually am. I'm really thinking about what I want to add to this edge here. So I'm going to use this one, stamp that there, and now I'm going to pick that up with this edge of my print that I'm building on here. Let's see what happens. Ah, there. Now I've got something a little more vibrant going on. Anyway, I wanted to show you some of the prints I pulled yesterday. I had, in testing out the theory, I did a few tests, so I got some nice results. There's one that I really liked, and let me see. And these, I had these two slimline tags sitting around, and I used them and just pulled up a simple one. You can see it's a lot of white space, but it creates a nice look. So these are ready to go and be used as backgrounds for cards, slimline cards, which are kind of, I'm on the bandwagon. I'm enjoying the slimline card thing. And so, yeah, so that's alcohol inks with a jelly plate, and this is the alcohol ink that ended up on my workspace, and I'm just dissolving it with a spritz of that alcohol, and it comes right off. It's a miracle. Look at that. Amazing. Nothing else in my life is this clean right now, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me, and you can make a shopping appointment, or starting in a weekend or so, you can just come in and shop on Saturdays. You know, I can only let 3 people in at once, so if there's more than that, you will have to wait, but hopefully it'll get timed well and you can just stop in. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me.